Hey everyone, how's it going? Coming to y'all with yet another guitar review, this time on the Ibanez EW20ZWE. Last time I reviewed an Alvarez, so I thought, why not go ahead and make it rhyme and go Ibanez this time. And initially I was just going to review just this one guitar. I wasn't going to talk about the other versions of the EW20 or the Exotic Wood series as a whole, but then I began really doing my research on the Exotic Wood line, and it's not that well documented. I had to go through some pretty obscure sites. I had to go through a lot of foreign sites and have them translated, and I'm pretty sure I gave my computer a couple STDs in the process. But I did as much as I could to compile as much information on the entire series as I could. That would be the 10 series, the 20 series, the 30 series, the 40 series, the 50 series, and the 28 series and 35 series, which are obscure in-between steps. And I took as much information as I could find down in my notes, and I'm going to go ahead and talk about everything in this video, everything I was able to find. So yes, we're going to be reviewing this guitar, but I'm also going to try to educate on the Ibanez Exotic Wood line as a whole, in case you were wondering, because you might see this version and say, okay, that looks really, that sounds like a nice guitar, so I like the design, but maybe I'm not crazy about the Zebrawood, or I've had Zebrawood guitars before and I just don't like the way they sound, or I don't like the way that one sounds. What other woods do they come in? Well, I'm going to try to answer that question. Now, as far as going into the details of what each tone wood is supposed to do for your guitar's sound, I'm not going to do that here. And the reason why is I feel like that unfairly colors the viewer's impression on what they believe they should be hearing. Because if I said, oh yeah, X wood sounds deep and warm, while Y wood sounds bright and clear, then that's going to put this idea into your head, and you're artificially going to hear those things, even if they aren't there. So I'm not doing that. I want you to hear with your ears, not with your eyes, not with your mind, not with anything else. I just want you to hear what you hear and tell me what you think about that. The next thing I want to quickly mention is I'm not going to be plugging this guitar in during this review, and the reason why is I'm using my phone as my camera, and it cannot very well pick up the sound of the electronics when I plug it in. The acoustic tone tends to overwhelm it, and it can also tend to make the sound dirtier than it is. However, I will link a video in the description where I do a brief, about minute and a half test of the electronics on this guitar, plugged through my acoustic amplifier and from that directly into my audio interface, and I recorded it that way. The video quality is not great because I had to use Bandicam and a crappy webcam, but the audio quality is pretty clear, and you'll be able to hear what the guitar sounds like plugged in that way. In this review, though, we're going to be talking about the guitar and giving some purely acoustic demonstrations of the sound. So, let's go ahead and jump right into it. Before I talk about this guitar in particular, let's go over the history and the information regarding the Exotic Wood series from Ibanez as a whole. So this entire line of guitars is made in China. So if that bothers you, that's a thing you should be aware of, because it is made in China. Does that matter? I don't think so. A guitar can be made anywhere and still be made to incredibly high standards, and can still be made to be very high quality. Which I feel this is a pretty, decent quality guitar. Am I gonna lie to you and say this is gonna blow you away if you like Martin? And no, it's not. It's not gonna impress people who have $3,000 guitars necessarily. Not acoustically, anyways. Electronically, maybe. But in terms of build quality and whatnot, it is right about what you'd expect from a $400 guitar. It is well put together, but it has some issues. But, it is a Chinese-made guitar. I don't think that really matters to anything. I played Chinese guitars that were amazing, Chinese guitars that were crap, American guitars that were amazing, and American guitars that were crap. So keep that in mind. I just wanted to bring it up because I know a lot of people don't want to buy a guitar that isn't made in America or Japan or somewhere similar. Okay, so starting things out, the 10 series of the Exotic Wood were basses. They were acoustic basses that came in both 4-string and occasionally 5-string. And from what I was able to find, they would consist of figured ash in both a natural figured ash and a black figured ash option, which is the only non-natural finish I've seen on any of these instruments, as well as a cocobolo. So you got figured ash in natural or black and cocobolo for the 10 series basses. Then you have the 20 series. Okay, and the most common of the 20 series was the figured ash. By far the most common version. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a gorgeous guitar. And I've played some of the figured ash guitars, and they're great. They are good instruments. Do I think they sound better or worse than Zebrawood? I don't really have an opinion. I think they sound different. That's the thing, is better or worse, it's subjective. It's dependent on the individual who's listening and the kind of music you're playing with it. I think it sounds different. Then the Zebrawood would be the next most common, and then the remainder of the woods available in no particular order of rarity would be Babinga, aka African Rosewood, Figured Walnut, Spalted Maple, and Spalted Mango. Okay, so really interesting choices in woods there. Next up, you have the 30 series. Now, the 30 series is interesting because while most of these exotic wood lines, the 20 series, the 40 series, and the 50 series are grand auditorium shapes, and yes, this is a grand auditorium. They call it their EW body shape. Call it what you want. This is a grand auditorium guitar / mini jumbo. What's the difference between a grand auditorium and mini jumbo? The person labeling the guitar, the exact same specifications. But this is a grand auditorium shape. I have compared this side by side with my buddy's Taylor 214CE. It is the exact same body shape, and it even fits in a Taylor grand auditorium case, which are form-fitted to grand auditoriums. It's a little snug. It might be just ever so slightly wider, but it's close enough that it definitely qualifies in my book as a grand auditorium. Now, the EW30 series, on the other hand, those are grand concerts, okay? Meaning that they are the same size as a lot of the popular Takaminis out there. They are going to be a smaller body shape than this. Same overall shape, but it's going to be a little smaller. It's going to be, not quite as wide, and as a result, they're not going to be quite as loud. But the 30 series were grand concerts, and they came, from what I could find, in quilted mahogany, which is gorgeous, by the way. I love hogtops, so I want one of those. Figured ash and paddock. Now, in addition to that, you also had the 35 series, which were the same as the 30 series, but they were a little more blinged out. And we're going to see that as a trend moving forward with a lot of these guitars. So the 40 series and 50 series are basically the same as the 20 series, but more blinged out. The 35 series is the same as the 30 series, but more blinged out. So you have more accenting, more abalone, more high-end materials used that way. It's still all going to be laminate construction on the woods. But from what I can find, those came in Sapele Pamel and Burl Maple. So those were cool. On the 20 series, I forgot to mention, you can find left-handed versions available of some of the woods. There's also a 12-string version available only of the figured ash. And there's also the 28 series, which only came in Babinga, from what I could tell, and it was a classical guitar. Okay, so nylon string guitar for the 28 series. And then you had the 40 series. Okay, like I mentioned, the 40 series and 50 series were the same as the 20 series in terms of shape and overall design, but they were a little bit more blinged out. Again, you had more accenting. While this has an abalone sticker, basically, mother of toilet seat, or whatever you want to refer to it as, for the rosette. And it is attractive, by the way, but it is just a sticker. And you have this perloid inlay on the fingerboard. Okay, not mother of pearl, just a perloid plastic, and same with the headstock. The 40 series and 50 series would be using actual mother of pearl or abalone. They were more blinged out in that way. They would also have more intricate binding than just this typical cream binding we're seeing on this guitar. Hopefully you're not bored by this point, because I have a lot more to say. So those came in Cocobolo, Monkey Pod, the 40 series anyways, came in Cocobolo, Monkey Pod, Burl Maple, and Spalted Mango. And then the 50 series came in Monkey Pod, Spalted Maple, Sapele Pamel, and Olive Ash Burl. Okay, so those are all your different woods available through the different parts of the exotic wood line. And that's quite a lot, honestly. There's a lot of different styles made by Ibanez in this series. And if you were to ask me, are they all worth looking into? My answer would be yes, if you like the way these guitars look and you like the way they feel. Okay? If you're not a fan of these types of guitars, then obviously probably not. If you prefer a more typical natural finish dreadnought, then you're not going to have too much interest in these exotic wood laminate instruments. If you're a hardcore serious musician, am I going to tell you that these aren't worth it? No, I'm not, because at that point in time, I've played so many different instruments at different gigs, and I've had people tell me all the time, that guitar sounded amazing, or that guitar sounded bad, whether it was an expensive guitar or a cheap guitar. I've taken nice guitars to gigs, and people didn't like the way they sounded plugged in. I've taken really cheap guitars to gigs, and people loved how they sounded plugged in. So the name on the headstock does not matter. It does not make it a serious instrument or a non-serious instrument. What matters is the tone. So yes, I would still recommend these to professional musicians on the caveat of getting them set up. So let's go ahead and dive into this guitar in particular. We have a Laminated Zebrawood top, Laminated Zebrawood back and sides, a mahogany neck, a rosewood fingerboard and bridge, Ivorex II nut and saddle. Now Ivorex II is basically Ibanez's version of Tusk. It's very, very similar to Tusk in terms of how it feels and how it sounds. We have their Advantage bridge pins, which just feel like plastic bridge pins to me. And on the topic of the nut, this is an interesting point because this is a later produced version, okay? And the way you can tell is the tuning machines, the nut, and the preamp system. So later produced versions have a very typical, very standard style nut, like this. While earlier versions, and this is a different Ibanez that I have, but it uses the same nut as the earlier versions of the Exotic Wood series. You might be able to see that step design. Okay, earlier versions of the Exotic Wood series use a nut that look exactly like this. Which one's better, which one's worse? I actually like the earlier version a little bit better because it's a little easier to file down, and by the way, this does need that. I haven't set this up yet, and all the time I've owned it, but you might be able to see, I'll bring that in, maybe, maybe not, that the action's kind of high on the nut, and on the saddle. This does need to have its saddle adjusted, and its nut adjusted, which is pretty typical of a guitar of this price point. So that nut needs to be filed in a little bit more on those string slots, and the saddle needs to be shaped. Is that a huge deal? No. Expect to set your guitars up when you get them. Why haven't I done so yet? Because it's honestly not uncomfortable to play as it is. It could be more comfortable, but also the slightly higher action lets me use this thing for some slide guitar on the rare occasion I like messing around with that. So I'm probably not going to bother setting this up. Maybe one day I will, but it's not uncomfortable as it is. And again, I like playing it with slide. Tuning machines, another thing that's going to be different on older models or newer models is this newer model here has just these generic chrome sealed die-cast machines, while earlier versions would have had chrome versions of these tuning machines. Okay, these Ibanez branded tuning machines, and these, the older style, way better tuners than this newer style. Okay, just being honest with you, to the point that I'm going to track down a set of chrome tuners of the older style and replace these with them. Because these are okay, they're fine. Yes, it will go out of tune under even slight weather changes. If you're in a controlled environment, it'll stay in tune well enough. But the older style, I would put them on par with Grover, I would put them on par with Gotoh. They are fantastic, they just do not go out of tune. So that is a bit of a downside to this older, or to this newer version of the guitars. But the upside to the newer version of these, or the later produced versions, is the preamp system, okay? So they called this the, I have the information written down, the Ibanez SRT preamp with B-band UST29R pickup. And the older models were also called the SRTCs. However, the big difference between this and those, aside from the shape, because the other ones just look like a bunch of wheels on a more horizontal plate, is on this you have a treble control, a middle control, and a bass control, just like on the older version. An anti-feedback frequency and volume control, just like the older version. A tuner and phase reverse, just like the older version, but this also has a chorus option. So built-in chorus on the preamp. Do you like chorus? Do you hate chorus? I don't know, but it is an additional feature, and additional features are always an immediate benefit. Okay, if this has everything the older version has plus chorus, that makes this the better preamp, as far as I'm concerned. Now, the pickup used on these, the B-band UST29R, or whatever the hell I said it was called, yeah, 29R UST, is weird. Because when you think of piezo pickups, everyone thinks of the typical 1/10 inch millimeter or 1/10 inch jacks that you can plug in to the preamp, and then you have like the either the black bar or the copper wire that sits under the saddle. Well, this pickup does have a black bar pickup design, but the plug to go into the preamp is not a 1/10 inch jack. It is a proprietary dual prong design, meaning that if your pickup goes bad, and I did have a pickup go bad in this exact guitar, it is a pain in the neck to replace the pickup. Okay, it takes quite a bit of time to track one down, and it's expensive because you can't just use any other pickup. You have to use one of B-band's pickups. And to get an official B-band pickup, just for the pickup, is like $75 if you're able to find one. If you order a bootleg one from China, you'll still be looking at $30 for a counterfeit, just to get your guitar amplified again. So it's a bit of a pain. And from everything I could find, these do have a bit of a history of having the pickups go out. I've watched a few YouTube videos where people were mentioning that theirs had gone out, and people in the comment section were mentioning that theirs had gone out, and finding a new one is always the problem. So they are temperamental. So I think personally they sound really good plugged in. Again, check the demo in the description below to judge for yourself. But it is finicky. It is a very finicky pickup system. And you know, if you don't want to deal with that, if you don't want to risk your guitar not working when amplified in the future, maybe that's a reason to avoid the guitar. Oh, I also forgot to mention earlier when I was going over the information, lots of information on these exotic woods. They do make non-electric versions with no cutaway on some of the guitars, specifically the 20 series. So if you don't care about playing plugged in at all, you can either get this version or you can get that version. But if you see a version without a cutaway, it does not have electronics. Okay. Speaking of the cutaway, I love the design of the cutaway because it allows for extremely easy access to these upper frets. This is, in my opinion, the best cutaway design I have ever seen. I like it better than a typical Florentine or Venetian cutaway because it is so easy to get to these upper frets. Whereas if you have a typical cutaway design on like a, bring this in for comparison, my Sigma here, now you can get up here, but it's not quite as easy as with this Ibanez. So I love the cutaway design on the exotic wood Ibanezes. Okay, I think it's fantastic. I don't know if I've mentioned this or not, but the headstocks do have a veneer to match the body of the guitars. So in this case, it's Zebrawood. Kind of a nice touch. Some people like that, some people hate that. And the book matching is very, very nice on this axe. I know I'm all over the place on this review. I'm sorry. It's hard to get all the information organized and put into one space whenever you don't edit your videos like me because you're lazy. Only one inlay on the fingerboard, and we can see it is that nice infinity symbol. And again, this is a pearloid, so it's a plastic that's meant to look like mother of pearl. And it's marked on the 12th fret. But you do have your dot markers on the side, which is what you're typically going to be looking at anyways. So I think it's fine. I personally like when a fretboard either has more intricate designs or nothing at all. And this to me is a really nice touch. Let's see, what else is there to talk about this guitar? The neck is a 25.2 inch scale length. The nut is 1 11/16 inches wide. So there's your, you know, specifications in that sense. I know a lot of people care about that. And the MSRP on these things back in the day, or the retail price back in the day anyways, was about $400. These days you can pay anywhere from as low as $250 to as high as $700, depending on which wood you're finding. Okay, is that worth it? It's going to be up to you to decide if you like the exotic woods of the guitars, you like the way they look, and if you like the way they sound. So it doesn't fly in here and it's bothering me. So let's give you some acoustic demonstrations on how this guitar sounds. And let's do this whole Scott Grove thing, shall we? Sorry for all the head shaking, the damn fly keeps trying to get on my face and in my ear. Some flat picking. And some finger picking. So, I personally think it has a unique tone to it. It is an all-laminate construction. Some people will make you feel like that is a useless construction. They'll make you feel like it's worse than a solid construction. It's really up to you. Laminate has advantages and disadvantages against solid wood. A disadvantage compared to solid wood is supposedly it's not going to open up as much with time, but a huge advantage is it's also going to be far more durable and resistant to climate and environmental temperature changes. So if you're on the road with this thing, or on tour with this thing, you don't have to worry about it cracking and splitting nearly as much as you would a solid guitar, or a solid wood guitar. Oh, I did forget to mention this. The strap button, both down here is fine, but here is in the wrong place. Okay, you never want a strap button here. It just hangs so awkwardly, so I would recommend taking that off and mounting it right here on the side of the neck joint. And I'm going to do that myself because I don't like the way this thing hangs on my neck. But we do have the option for both 1/4-inch jack and XLR output, which I like because, in my opinion, unless you have an end pin jack, okay, so if this is not your jack, you should always have the XLR option because it's just a pure upside. There's no reason not to. I hate that Fishman systems don't do that because, I mean, you're already cutting a hole in the guitar to put a black piece of plastic there for a battery joint and 1/4-inch jack anyways. Why not go ahead and include an XLR jack? No more options. And I think that if you can output your guitar through XLR, it typically gives you better audio fidelity. So just my personal opinion, from my own experience, I'm just a bar band musician, okay, I'm nobody, but that's what I believe, that's what I think. So, let's play this thing a little bit more, shall we? Apparently playing pretty badly because I'm messing up my notes. But who cares? I'm not going to edit that out. If I screw up, I screw up. Oh, the strings on here, by the way, are just D'Addario EXPs. I'm not a big fan of I'm not a fan of D'Addario EXPs. I don't like the strings, but they're what I had available to me, so that's what I put on here. I will replace these with either Elixirs or D'Addario XS strings at some point. But I know people always want to know what strings they are, and they are light gauge, so 12 through 53, which I also don't prefer. I like 11 to 52. So again, you judge for yourself how you think it sounds acoustically. I'm personally a fan of the sound. I think it's got its own tone, its own sound entirely. And plugged in, I personally think it sounds even better. Again, check the demo in the description down below for that, but I'm a fan of it. So I don't know, you judge for yourself what you think of the guitar. Well, we're damn near at 25 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and end this review here very, very soon. That has been my take on the Ibanez EW20ZWE and basically the entire exotic wood series as a whole. Would I buy more of these? I actually want to. I have my eye on a quilted Mahogany 30 series right now, and I am also looking into getting one of their 12 strings from the 20 series. So, yeah, I like the guitars. They stand out on stage, which is a big thing for me. Again, I'm a bar band musician. I like an instrument that makes people look over at the stage and go, what the hell? And this does that. This grabs attention, and therefore, when it grabs attention, gets you noticed, and when you're noticed, you get tips. So it's good for that, and you know, it's nice just to stand out from the crowd a little bit when everyone else is playing the same old boring looking guitars. So I'm a big fan of that personally. So that has been my review on the EW20. I hope you've enjoyed. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope it was informative. Until next time, damn fly. Peace, and I'll see you later.